Hi, and welcome to Deep Leadership. I'm your host, John Rennie. One of the most important things that leaders do is impact the people around them. The best leaders work hard to make sure that impact is positive. My guest today is someone I have known for over 10 years. She is the kind of leader who is making a positive impact in the lives of her team and her industry. She is the founder and CEO of Select Power Systems, an engineering company that supports the electrical power industry. I'm excited to have her on the show to talk about how she is using her influence as a leader to make a difference. So, are you ready to dive in? Let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Leadership. Leadership is a people business. That's the philosophy of your podcast host, John Rennie. As a former Cold War submarine officer who spent 20 plus years leading businesses in corporate America before starting his own manufacturing business, he knows that leadership matters. Are you ready for some real-world actionable advice from John as well as his expert guests?
I'm ready.
The show starts right now.
Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Heather Eason. Heather is the founder, president, and CEO of Select Power Systems, a full-service engineering firm supporting the electrical power industry. Select Power Systems is a certified woman-owned small business. Heather is an electrical engineer with an MBA who's been leading technical organizations for years. She also shares her thoughts on leanedon.com, where her mission is to empower women in STEM careers. I've known Heather since 2010 when we both worked for a large global engineering company. Now we're each running our own businesses. I'm excited to talk to Heather about her journey in leadership and entrepreneurship. So Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, I'm so glad that we can sit down and talk. We had to postpone this interview, so I'm glad we finally could hook up and talk. And I'm really excited to hear about your journey to entrepreneurship and about Select Power, because I'm excited about you kind of taking the plunge and starting your own business. So I'm really excited to talk about that and to hear your journey. But let's get started here. So what got you into engineering in the first place? Why did you choose a career in a technical field and technical leadership?
So I guess I have to blame my dad. My dad, he always used to use the phrase, he said, I raised a daughter, not an invalid. So being a girl is no excuse not to do anything. And he was an operator at the Oconee Nuclear Station at Duke Energy outside of Clemson, South Carolina. I learned so much from him. I was just so fascinated by the stories that he told. And even though he wasn't an engineer himself, just the level of expertise and knowledge that he had around the nuclear industry really just, it fascinated me, and it started me on my journey.
Wow. And did you early on sort of have the knack? I mean, did you have a natural inclination towards math, science, solving problems? Did it come natural to you, or was it something that you had to work at?
So me and my brother both are math nerds. So I actually in ninth grade doubled up and took 2 math classes the same year in high school. So I loved math. It was something that, I joke, I say I'm not good at foreign languages. I took French and Spanish both, but I can't speak them anymore. But I talk the language of math. It makes sense to me. And, my brother equally, he got a degree in math, and he actually is a high school math teacher now. So we both went the math route.
Wow. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I had trouble learning foreign languages, but math seemed to always just make sense to me. The rules were, I don't know, the rules made sense, and they were always applied equally. And to me, it was pretty straightforward. And but I didn't have a long history of people in my family who chose an engineering route. But for me, it just sort of, I was always solving problems, and math seemed easy. So engineering seemed like a route to go, right? So
exactly. And for good or bad, the idea is that you have to be good at math to be a good engineer. And I've actually found that's not true. You know, the math, yeah, you have to have the math foundation, but it's really the curiosity, it's the creativity, it's the problem solving, it's the puzzles
Yeah.
that make you a good engineer. The math is just the vehicle that you use to get there. So, I like to tell people, hey, you've got to have the math basics. That's true. You have to be able to do the math to solve the complicated problems. But that's not what makes good engineers. So if you've got the curiosity, you like solving problems and puzzles, and that's what's interests you, look at engineering. Because there's a lot of what we do that doesn't necessarily always, I don't do Laplace Fourier transformers on a daily basis anymore, right?
No, I hope not. No, I don't either. So in fact, I tell people sometimes I'm a former engineer because I do mostly cash flow and P&L statements these days, but I still can understand most engineering topics, but I don't design anymore. So
I'm with you. And I guess that's where you and I both translated from being engineers into being entrepreneurs. I miss some of the days where I could just dig into engineering, dig into schematics and, elementaries. And I miss those days sometimes because cash flow and P&L statements, they do kind of take over what we do as an entrepreneur. That is true.
That is true. I spend more time looking at my bank account than I do looking at engineering prints these days. So I got a question. So a lot of what you talk about is you're focused on STEM and bringing more women into the STEM roles, and I see it as a big challenge. I mean, I think that we don't see enough women choosing an engineering path or an engineering career. My sister's an engineer. I have engineers working for me, female engineers working for me in my company. But why do you think you don't see as many women choose a career path like engineering?
I think that women don't see themselves in that career because they don't see women in that career as much. It does help to actually see something to be able to visualize yourself in that position. So I think it's important as a female engineer for me to go out and talk to other, and I look at it as a full range. It's me talking to my niece a couple nights ago who was getting ready to go into a big biology exam, and she was nervous. And I'm like, hey, you got this. You can do it. It's mentoring, students at NC State, female engineers through the WISE program, and giving them confidence that, hey, yeah, it's tough, and you might be one of just a few female engineering students in your class, but this is worth it. You can do it. Hang in there. Then in the workplace, identifying high potential and then taking time out of my day to really mentor, coach, and take them under my wing and help them to develop and blossom and grow into what they want to be, whatever that is in the engineering technical field. Because one of the things I have noticed, when you talk about talent pipeline, we have a gap. We have a deficiency of good engineers, and women and minorities can help us fill that.
Absolutely.
But the challenge is, what I've seen, you get the girls interested, you get them through college, you get them into a first technical role. For some reason, in my experience, around 7 years, they drop out. They move into non-technical roles. And I did it. I moved into project management.
Yeah.
Now I went back to technical. I went back to engineering, but I did. I jumped out of technical and went more to project management for a while. But I see a lot of women, when they make their transition, they don't necessarily come back to the technical roles. So how do you then change the C-suite? How do you then change the boardroom?
Absolutely.
When you've got that lack of talent throughout the entire pipeline. So it's really a challenge. And, I wrote an article just recently about COVID-19. I'm up to 8 now, 8 female engineers that I know who are great engineers, really good talent, top potential engineers that have made the decision because of COVID, they're going to quit their job, they're going to stay home, they're going to educate their children.
Oh yeah, because I mean, it's sometimes that just falls on the mom, right? So with students having to work remotely, they're making a decision that, well, if there's no way, I'm going to stay home. There's no way I can, send my kids to school. I'm just going to stay home and help educate my children. Wow. Yeah, I didn't really think of it that way. It's a big challenge, right? Especially with COVID, that now the responsibilities of the home and taking care of the children, takes a front seat, right? When you can't send your kids to school. That's really interesting. So I didn't really think about that. It's a shame, because I think me and my experience working with women engineers over the years, I there is no difference in capability. Certainly, I would say in some cases the attention to detail is a lot higher, actually. So, and so there's no reason why careers, in engineering shouldn't be sought after. But I think you're right. There is a lack of role models. You certainly don't see anybody in mainstream, media or what have you that are, maybe well-known female engineers doing great things. I mean, you've got the Elon Musks out there and what have you, but so there's not the role models that you see like with on the men's side of things. So really interesting. What so you're like me, so you spent a lot of time in big companies doing various roles. And in fact, we worked together for a short period of time. So why did you finally decide to start your own company, to move away from the big companies and go into business for yourself and starting up your own company? Why did you make that decision?
So it was actually a decision that took multi-years to come to. I actually had a rumor out there that I was starting my own company, and it was totally false at the time. But I had so many people, text in and call in, hey, I heard this rumor, you're starting your own company. Good for you. You can do it. And that kind of planted a seed. Because I was like, well, if everybody else thinks I can do it, maybe I can. And so then as I thought about it, and it took me years from that point to get to the I guess the straw that broke the camel's back for me to actually do it. I thought about it from that point on, but it was always kind of like, no, I like climbing the ladder. I like what I'm doing here. And I don't know if I can make as much impact owning my own business. And really, it just hit me one day. It's like, no, owning your own business is what you can and should do. You can make more impact in the industry that way. In diversity spend, which you're aware of in the industry, the electric utility industry has diversity spend initiatives. Not all, but most do now. And having, competent, qualified, capable, customer service oriented companies. When I sat on the other side of the table, I struggled to find that. And I was like, if I have this frustration and I have this need, and I talked to several other people that were in my roles in the industry, and they said, yeah, this is something that we need. We need more women-owned engineering firms that are doing the right thing and having quality and customer service as a basis. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And so, and there's there's a couple of people that I look at and I say, yeah, they kind of gave me the confidence to do it. And you're one of them, because you had opened your company not too long before I opened mine. And I don't know that you know this, but the company you were with prior to opening up your own company, I interviewed for your old job.
Oh, wow.
I did.
Well, you would have done a better job than me. But that's funny.
Well, I didn't take it because I knew you had opened up your own company, and I was like, hey, he did it. Maybe I can do it. So I wasn't too far behind you. So I guess you're part to blame for me starting Select.
Oh, I'm glad. I think I felt the same way you did. I felt like, I could impact the market more from with my own company versus trying to do it through a big company. And the other thing for me, at least, I felt like big corporations have sort of lost their soul. It was all kind of bureaucratic and rules, and people were not a priority. And I always believe that, that leadership is a people business and people should be our priority. And, I found myself having a hard time implementing, the stuff that came down from on high. I kind of felt, I had to tell employees certain things I didn't agree with. And that's really hard when you care about people and you can't do what's right for them. It was hard for me. So for me, part of it was like I need a few more degrees of freedom to treat people the way I wanted to treat them. So,
and that's a perfect segue into kind of why we do what we do, and it comes down to my motto is #power to make a difference. I truly believe we have the power to make a difference. And you and I have both been there with large companies where you go through the drastic rise of hiring because you landed some big project. As soon as it's over, the next one doesn't come through. And then you've got to lay people off. Right. And then you go through the next cycle, right? It was torturous. I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things I said when I opened up my company and COVID happened, I said, we're not going to lay anybody off.
And
we haven't. I haven't laid a single person off this year. And have we had months that the cash flow was negative? Absolutely. Have we had less revenue on certain months than we had the previous year or 2 years or 3 years? Absolutely. But I made the call and I made the decision that I was not going to lay off a single person because, when you have a business, you don't just impact yourself. You carry the real burden of your employees, but not just them. It's their spouses, it's their kids, it's their mortgage payment. It's,
so true.
The kids' college fund. There's so many things that you're responsible for. And so, we have not laid off a single person with COVID, and we don't plan to.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we did the same. So we've got same amount of people. In fact, we brought some people on to help us get through we actually had quite a surge during this time. And I think because some of the big companies kind of didn't perform very well. And so we were able to kind of take advantage of that. But, to your point, I was just thinking about what you said, and it really, the idea that, you impact the lives, not only the lives of your employees, but their families. And I was going to tell a story real quick. When I was running a plant here in North Carolina, we used to have a family day. We would go up to King's Dominion, and we would, you could bring your immediate family with you. And so everybody went to King's Dominion, and then we would meet at the pavilion for lunch. And at one point we had some 250 employees, and they each had brought all their family members. Well, I gave a little opening speech, and I looked out in the crowd, and there was 1,000 people there listening to me talk. And that was a really clear reminder of the people that are affected by the decisions I make as a leader. It's not just the 250 employees, it's all their families. And it was just like, wow, that was a powerful visual of the effect that we have as leaders on our people. It's not just them, it's their whole family.
Absolutely. And that's what keeps us up at night when we look at our cash flow, because we know it affects every person that works for us and their immediate family. That's why we stay up at night as entrepreneurs.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Deep Leadership is brought to you by Peak Demand. Peak Demand is a veteran-led manufacturer of products for electric utilities. They help utilities keep the lights on. Building and maintaining the nation's electrical grid is hard work, but getting the critical components to keep it running shouldn't be. Peak Demand's products ship in just 24 hours, where most other suppliers can take up to 8 weeks. Go to peakdemand.com and learn more about the Peak Demand difference and request a free sample. Deep Leadership is also brought to you by my Amazon best-selling book, I Have the Watch, Becoming a Leader Worth Following. This book is filled with 23 short stories on how you can become a more effective leader. Learn how to unleash the power of people with this easy, practical guide. Go to IHaveTheWatch.com and click the large orange button for signed copies. Enter the discount code DEEPLEADERSHIP, one word, at checkout to get 20% off your order, and domestic shipping is always free. What's been your experience starting your own business from scratch? I know for me, at least, having had a long time in the Navy and with big companies, there was always like a framework to make your decisions in. And when I went to my own company, it was just nothing there. I mean, it was a blank slate, and that took a little bit to get used to. So, what was your experience like starting a business from zero, basically, and creating everything?
The first day that I gave my resignation and walked away from the big corporation, the big paycheck, the big bonus, the stability, I was so excited. I was so happy. I was pumped. I was like, yes, I'm going to do this.
Right.
2 weeks later, I was terrified. Absolutely terrified.
Yes.
One of the things I did, which is a little bit different from most people, is I self-funded. I bootstrapped this thing. I don't have any investors. I don't have any loans. I just decided if I was going to do it, I didn't want anybody else's fingers in the cookie jar, that I wanted to be able to set the company up the way that I wanted to. But how do you do that? How do you start with nothing, right?
Yeah.
And you'll probably remember you were one of the people I reached out to early on. And I said, hey, I think I'm going crazy. I'm going to open my own business. You just did it. Tell me what worked and what didn't. And I reached out to probably a dozen people that I trusted that had made that transition. And I took notes of everybody I talked to. And then I kind of took those notes and I whittled them down and I thought about them and I whittled them down again. I said, okay, this is what I think, rose to the top of the cream. This is what I think is really good. This is what I'm going to keep. This is what I'm going to use. And, and then I did it. I had an MBA, so I had some business acumen. I had P&L responsibilities in a large corporation. So I, understood some of that. And so I had some of the financial literacy. So I wasn't starting from zero, but I did feel like I was starting from scratch. And so I took all the experiences of wonderful people like yourself and also from my own experiences. And I kept the good and I threw away the bad. And I said, okay, let's jump out of the airplane and hope we pack the chute right.
It's so true. We laugh about it too, because when we started our company, there was a quote from Mark Cuban who says, if you start your own company, the last thing you need to do is create a logo and buy a bunch of shirts. But that's the first thing we did. We created a logo and bought a bunch of shirts. So it's just funny because you get excited about starting a company. And really what Mark was saying is that you ought to go get, see if you can sell the idea, see if someone's going to pay money for your products or your service. But most people, like we did, we run off and create a logo and get some cool polo shirts so we can wear it at trade shows. But it's interesting. Yeah. So I think it's, I think one of the things that I've found is, A, it was fun that there were no rules, but B, it was challenging that there was no rules. So you had to kind of create everything from scratch. And, having worked for global companies, there was always some expert within the organization you could turn to. And so like you're pointing to, you had to go out. We had to go outside the company to find people who were, resources or people that could help us. And so I ended up being connected with a lot of different people that I did in my corporate life. So a lot more, local business people, lawyers, bankers, things that you would normally not do in the corporate world. So it's pretty interesting. You ended up in a whole different, system of, or you're surrounded by a completely different type of people than you did in a corporate setting, which you were mostly just surrounded by people from that company. So I enjoyed it, but it was definitely hard to get used to in the beginning after working so many years in a big corporation. So one thing,
I was just going to say, absolutely. One of the things I did learn, by the way, is that I'm not an expert at everything. There's a lot of stuff I'm not good at, and I had to start outsourcing and asking people for help.
Yeah.
So you're exactly right. Finding the right lawyer, finding the right CPA team that fits. It took time. Now that I have it in place, it's so much better.
Yes. Yeah.
Realizing that there's some stuff I'm just not good at, and I need to pay the expert to do it. That was important
absolutely.
for me.
Yeah, and it's hard sometimes as an entrepreneur. You think you can do everything, and you can't. You have to recognize where you're weak and bring in the experts to shore that up. And there's plenty of there's a whole ecosystem around startup businesses and people that are willing to help you. And if you're connected with the right people, I think you can find those resources. And in the early days, we were doing a lot of stuff on Fiverr to make videos or to do a logo or do things. You're spending your own money. You're not spending a big bucks like we did in the big company. So you're a lot more frugal. So. But so one thing I noticed that, at least for me, that how I led was different. So how you lead in a big company versus how you lead in a startup company. So what did you notice as from a leadership perspective, what changed going into your own company?
I would say, when I worked at a large corporation, I definitely kept a professional hat on at all points. You go through rigorous amounts of HR training of what you can say, what you can't say, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. So you end up, in my opinion, kind of keeping your employees at arm's distance. And so that was one of the things, being an entrepreneur, starting up my company, and I jokingly say the last thing I'm going to hire is an HR manager.
Yeah.
It's different because, I can be more personal with them. One of the things I remember, having a corporate job, again, I was always professional, I always kept that manager hat on or director hat on. And right before I left one of my corporate positions, we did like a group outing where we went to Carolina hockey's Hurricane game.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And I'm a huge hockey fan. I love hockey. I get into it. I've got the jerseys and everything. And so we're sitting in the group area, so I'm surrounded by employees, and something happened on the ice, and basically there was a fight. And I'm standing up and I'm, air boxing, and I'm cheering, and I noticed everybody around me was quiet. And my husband's like pulling at my jersey, like, you need to sit down. And I looked around and everybody was shocked. Everybody was amazed that, I was that passionate about it. I really knew the game. I was a real Carolina Hurricanes hockey fan, and I got into it, and they couldn't fathom that side of me because I had basically walled myself off in a corporate position. Right. So I make sure now I don't do that. I connect with my employees. I get to know them. We talk about things that are personal, what's going on in our lives. I know what's going on in their lives. Of course, it's always HR appropriate, but, I like letting that guard down and letting them into my life and letting them know really who I am as a person and getting to know them and who they are as a person and their families and their spouses and their kids. And I think that's great. And I think that's one of the things in your book, I have the watch, you talked about you always attend weddings and funerals. And I
Right.
think that's important. I really do. And I think that for me, I wish I had found earlier in my career, but it took me stepping out and being an entrepreneur to recognize that.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. I think when I was talking about it, feeling like the corporation had no soul, I think that's what it was. Where I wanted to be that authentic person with my people, but you felt there was people, everybody's watching you. HR is watching. Your boss is watching you, so you tended to kind of play the manager role as you saw it played to you. And so yeah, I think it creates the best times I ever had in corporate is when I was running a business that was far away from corporate. So we were running a plant in the middle of nowhere where nobody would ever visit, so I could be authentic, and I did bring myself to work in a very authentic way like I do in my own company. But the closer I was to corporate, if you will, or everybody was more straight laced and not authentic. Everybody was sort of putting on a show. That's what I noticed. So I love those roles when I was running a plant in the middle of nowhere because I got to be myself. So and of course now with my own company, yeah, I can bring that my full personality to the job. So and I really enjoy that. I mean, um, we have one of our employees. We have a stand-up morning meeting every morning, and one of my employees announced that she was pregnant. And she's just a wonderful person, and she pretty much runs that company. And I looked around, everybody's crying. My entire company, like we're just standing around crying. And you didn't see that in the corporate world. You didn't see that connection that was so deep that we sat there and all bawled, finding out she was pregnant. Because we were just so happy for her. So I think that's what I love about a startup and a small company is you have that connection with people.
I fully agree. And, I find it almost comical now. You hear a lot of times with leadership training, they talk about being authentic and they talk about being
Mm,
vulnerable. I
yeah.
never felt comfortable being authentic or vulnerable in a corporate position
Mm,
ever.
yeah.
Um, but boy, I do with my company. I wear it on my sleeve and I put it out there and I love it. I love who I am now.
Yeah, that's great. You bring your whole self to work, and that's really neat. That's really neat to hear that. So, because I feel the same way. I don't feel like I have a company. I have a family, and that's the way I feel with my employees. We're a family, and it's us against the world, right? I mean, I'm going up against $150 billion companies, $40 billion companies, and we're just a little SEAL team. We don't have a land army, but we're pretty effective in small tactics and moving quickly and sometimes we run circles around the big guys, and it's a lot of fun. So it's us against the world, and I think everybody in my company feels that way. So, and it's really neat to be part of a team that feels that there's an energy there that we're going to show the world. We're going to put our own dent in the universe, and and it's fun to be part of something like that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I can say, I loved coming out to your facility and seeing your production area and meeting your team. And you're right. You have a family there, and every single one of them, they're almost like scrappy little terriers, And I
Yes.
love that about your team. I love those personalities that you put together.
Yeah, they're very skilled. It's really interesting. So everybody's an expert in their one particular area, but then we overlap in some areas. So it's really a powerful. It's not easy to do. I mean, I think right? Hiring in a small company is so much more critical than hiring a big company because that could be 10% of your workforce, right? It could be 5% of your workforce. It's a big part of your workforce. You hiring correctly is really important in a startup and in a young company.
Oh, absolutely. I've got some wonderful, wonderful people on my team now. And, we're actually at the point that we have three distinct divisions. So we have a division that does professional services, which is staffing and recruiting, and John Nash heads that up. I, of course, head up engineering services. And then Robert Bryan heads up our PMO and our operations team. And those three divisions are headed by complete experts, but we all cross support each other and we all work together. And it's just amazing at the end of the day what we accomplish. And, we cry over losses and we celebrate together over wins.
Yes.
And, it's wonderful to have that dynamic. And I can tell you, I'm so blessed to have the team that we do, but we do look at every single hire as strategic.
Absolutely.
I say, hey, we've got a new candidate. Let's put them through the gauntlet.
Right.
They have to make it through all three of us. All three of us have to give a thumbs up for someone to make it on the team. If just one of the three says, I don't know, that person doesn't get an offer.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah. And so we really are very similar to yours. We talk about the Select family. We've had people that have come through Select and gone on to other companies that unfortunately had layoffs, closed offices, divested divisions, various reasons people were laid off. And it's like, hey, they're still part of the Select family. They might not be on payroll right now, but they're part of the Select family. What can we do to help them find their next seat? And so the team comes together to do that.
That's great. So it's funny because like this past Friday night, one of my former employees came up and we spent the evening, him and his wife, and we just sat around and talked and had a great time. And he's a former employee. He left because he had a bigger opportunity at another company, but yet we still stay connected. I hope for his success. We're still friends and we're still cheering each other on, even though he's no longer an employee. I think there's something about that. Once you're part of that, we say the peak demand family, you say the Select family, you're sort of, you can't get rid of family once you're in the family, right? Even though you leave the company, you're still a family. So I love it. So what, as we talk about, you've seen many years in corporate, you've seen now plenty of time in your own startup. So in your opinion, what are some characteristics of a great leader?
So for me, a great leader, they're able to give a vision to their team, but they support their team in accomplishing that goal. And they're at the back pushing. They're not at the front pulling. They're at the back pushing. And, they're giving their team the support, the encouragement. You're the cheerleader. You're giving them the tools that they need. And you're setting them up for success to accomplish the vision and goals that you have set for them. You don't stand between them. You don't stand in front of them. You stand behind them and support them. And I think that's what's important to be a great leader.
I love that. So, setting the vision, supporting the team, encouragement, pushing them along, not, I just really like that. And I like the idea of being behind them and having their back and standing behind them as they, as they focus on reaching the goals that you've set. So I love that. I love the idea of just, a leader has their employees' back. That analogy really, I had one leader in my career that really stood behind me, and I'll never forget that. It was one of those things that it really changed my view on leadership when he did that. Just standing behind me, backing me up, even when things went wrong. That's a powerful thing a leader can do, especially when it's that employee gave 100% and the outcome didn't turn out that way, but you still back them up. And a lot of leaders don't do that. They'll throw people under the bus the first time something bad happens. And having a leader that backs you up even when wrong things happen, that's powerful.
I used to tell my team in corporate America, I used to say, I'm a big girl, throw me under the bus. If you've got a situation and something's happening and you need to deal with it, throw me under the bus. Let the arrows come at me. I've got a shield. I'll be okay. The only thing I ask is that you give me a heads up. If you throw me under the bus or you're going to start sending arrows my way, just let me know so I can be prepared for it.
Right, right.
That's what I'm here for. And so I always threw myself under the bus for my team and defended and protected my team, even if they were wrong. Now, there were times that I took employees in a conference room and we had some real talk. We had some hard
Right.
conversations.
Right.
But in front of the rest of the team, I never let them see that there was ever a problem, because, it's like, it's nobody else's business. If you failed, if you got an issue or challenge that you didn't reach, and it was a shortcoming for various reasons, that's between me and you. We need to figure out what I can do to help you improve so the next time it doesn't happen. But that's nobody else's business. Nobody else needs to know.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, praise in public and correct in private, right? I think that's really important. And good leaders do that, and the poor bosses, they do just the opposite. So really good. So what's next for you and Select Power Systems? What are you guys working on these days, and what are your plans going forward?
Select is really. We're really poised to go into 2021 doing some great things. We've got a lot of great opportunities. We've got some really great partners in the industry that work with us. And so we're being able to go after larger projects and make more of an impact, as well as take lead on a couple of smaller projects on our own. So I'm really excited about 2021 and what we're going to accomplish. We're doing some little side projects, social impact type projects. Again, hashtag power to make a difference is kind of the core of the company. So, supporting women in engineering, what can we do there? And also reaching out to historically Black colleges and universities and, reaching out to them and saying, hey, what minority engineering students do you have that we can mentor, that we can coach, that we can support and help? Because, again, going back to what we were saying earlier, we've got a talent gap, and women and minorities can help us fill that. So those are some of the social issues and programs that we have within Select beyond just what we can do to impact the utility environment.
I love to hear that. That's so great, because I think you're right. There's a talent gap, and we need as many resources into the engineering space as possible. Because I really do. I worry about it because I think not enough people are selecting engineering as a career. They seem to think it's I don't know. Everybody's fascinated by apps and things, and making a YouTube channel or what have you. But or maybe it's TikTok. I don't know. I'm old, but the point is they don't see the excitement in what engineers do. I mean, other than, like I talked about earlier, Elon Musk is in the news doing these amazing things. And I tend to tell people that's an engineer. That's what engineering does. That's what engineers do. And, but there's not enough of that, I think, in the mainstream kind of, world out there of engineers doing amazing things and inspiring the next generation to kind of go into engineering. So I think it's smart to seek out minorities, women, people who are traditionally not, in the pipeline. They're the smaller percentage of engineers. I think it's a great thing you can do. It's certainly making a difference, and that's very powerful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So how can people find out more about you, your company? And of course, we didn't get a chance to talk about too much, but your website where you write a lot about STEM issues and also career issues, leadership issues. How can people find out more about you?
So there's a lot of different ways. So selectpowersystems.com is the company website. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn. Heather Eason, feel free to look me up. I'm one of the few people that actually has my email address and my personal cell phone number listed, so you can reach out to me. I have been blogging since 2014 on leandon.com, so you can check me out there. And I'm actually writing a book.
Yes.
Again, John, you've inspired me. So I've started writing a book on women in STEM and how they can climb the ladder. I mean, that's kind of the basis of Leaned On is, how do you lean on that ladder and climb? Because I think that's a challenge that a lot of female engineers have. And having been there, done that, I kind of know what the landmines are, and I know where the air support is. And so I'd like to take some of that knowledge I gained and share it with others.
I'm excited about the book. So do you have a title for the book yet?
I have not. So
Okay.
Anybody that has any ideas or yourself, please share. It's one of those things where I think I'm going to write it, and I'm going to rewrite it, and I'm going to rewrite it, and then I'll probably share some of it out and say, hey, based on what I've written, what do you think the title should be? What do you think the, picture art should be, and things like that. I think title and art will probably be the last thing that I get to.
That's a good way to do it. That's for certain. Well, I'm excited about that, and I will definitely have you back on once the book is out, and we're going to talk all about it because I'm excited about what you're doing, and I know it's going to be amazing. It's great. I work with you, and I have so much respect for you, and now seeing you just take on the world of, starting your own business and being an entrepreneur and just killing it. You've got one of the biggest cheerleaders is me, just watching you grow and watching your company grow. And I'm just, I'm really excited for you in the future for Power, for your company and Select Power Systems and where you're headed. I'm just excited for you. So congratulations on all your success, and really, keep doing what you're doing, because I think it's really important you trying to help out and bring more people into this world of engineering. So I think you're setting a great example and being that example for female minorities and others getting into this space. So good for you.
Well, thank you so much, John. I do appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank you very much. And again, listeners, think about the things that Heather talked about. What does it take to be a startup leader? What are some of the things that she talked about? She talked about authenticity. And I think it's really good stuff. And, I liked her definitions of leaders and what leaders should do, and things like, crafting a vision, supporting the team, encouraging, pushing people along, standing behind them. So I think there's a lot of powerful lessons in this podcast. So take a listen to them, and we'll go ahead and we'll put all of Heather's her company and her LinkedIn page, all that. We'll put that in the show notes so you can reach out to her if you want to learn more. So thank you, Heather, for being on the show, and thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge and your experience with starting up your company.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Rennie saying take care and lead well.
Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and updates, please visit our website at www.deepleadershippodcast.com or johnsrennie.com. Until next time, take care.